Okay.
Reading. Let's see, for your Atkins. Connor, Vera, Rivka, Leah Ferdman, Robin Gahar, Rachel O'Connor, Roman, Beth Shapiro, and Rachel Chana Taher. We will use this text. Please take the books. To the bottom shelf. Someone could, the bottom shelf, someone could distribute them, please.
These ones?
Yes, please.
They're not here, just us.
We're on page 82. Well, we started the Malacha, the category of planting. And we said that initiating the growth would be the Malacha. That's the Av Malacha, that's the parent Malacha, which is putting a seed in the ground or putting a plant in the ground. Or this would also apply to starting roots, which would putting seeds on something moist that's going to sprout roots.
Rabbi, which page are we on?
We're on 82, but I'm just summarizing what we learned before. So this would also include when you're starting to grow a plant by putting the pit in the water like an avocado. So all of these would be initiating growth, and that is the Av Malacha. Same as also, we're going to be layering or grafting. All of this is the Av Malacha, and the Tolda, the derivative, which is also a Torah prohibition, would be promoting growth, which would be watering, fertilizing, weeding, anything that's going to promote growth is also a Torah prohibition, which is a Tolda, the derivative of this, the Av Malacha, of the parent Malacha, which is initiating, and then also protecting, would also go into this category if we're going to, in the cold, put a burlap sack around the tree to keep it from frost. All of this would be a Torah prohibition. We also spoke about, the last thing we spoke about was, if you have plants on the window and it's in a place of sun, can you open up the window shade to have the sun shine on the plants, or open your window so you can air? So if that's your intention, then it is not permissible, because your intention is to promote growth. However, if you do open it up because you want to have the sunshine in the room for your comfort, you're opening up the windows, so it'll be airy. So then this would be permissible, because your intention is not to promote growth, but rather the secondary, the primary thing is to have the sunshine in the room and have the air in the room. Okay. Now, here we have a situation on page 82 where you have, let's say, the countryside, the bungalow colony. You don't have the sewer system, but you do have a sink. You have the faucet, the water is connected. And where does the water go? So you have a hose that will take it out into the grounds. Now the question is, are you allowed to use this faucet where the water is going to then go onto the grass that's outside? So what do we say about that?
You can, because now it's like watering your plants. You can.
Okay, you know, if is going to a garden, and you know that you do want to have your garden watered, so even though your intention is to wash your hands, but you know what the result will be, that it's going to water your garden, so then you're not allowed to do this on Shabbos. So you have to make other arrangements during the week that you should be able, if you want to use that sink on Shabbos, it has to be such that it will not be watering any plants. If it does go out into the forest where there's nothing growing, so there's no benefit at all, you're not growing anything, you're not preparing any of the ground for planting, so in that case, it would be permissible. So depending where the water will end up, that is going to make a difference. You also have something that's called groma secondary. There are different opinions about this. Most of them are lenient. That would be, for instance, you have your porch here in, let's say something that would be in the city. You have a porch, and you have your chairs there, the plastic chairs, and it rained. Now you want to sit down on that chair, and now the chair has caught water. If you tip the chair, what's going to happen to the water? It's going to spill on the porch. From the porch, it's going to run down to the yard, to the garden. What about that? So what's your intention? What do you want?
If you know that it's gonna go to the garden, then you don't do it, because you know before you do it that it's gonna go to the flowers.
Okay, good. That would be the ones who say that it's not permissible because you are getting results that your garden is being watered. However, why would those who say it is permissible, what would be the reasoning behind it? So let's see what's happening. So there is a difference what you do when you're emptying the chair from the water. You can pick up the chair and go over to the yard, to the garden, and then tip it. Then you know you are watering the garden directly. Even though your intention is to clean the chair from the water, but you know that the result is going to be you watering your garden. So that would be, according to everyone, forbidden. The other thing is that you're not doing it over the garden, you're doing it over the porch. So it's going to go into the cement. From the cement, it's running off to the garden.
So it's not really
So
direct.
it's not direct, that's called indirect. And since your intention is not to water the garden, so then according to the ones who say it's permissible, this would be an indirect called groma, and that would be permissible, since your intention is not to water the garden. Especially after a rain, your garden doesn't need any more water. It's not going to be beneficial by your adding this water that you poured on the porch, because we're speaking about a good soaking, that your garden was very well watered and it's saturated with water. And now when you're going to add this water, it's not going to be in any way a benefit. So to do it directly, even if it's not a benefit, you're not allowed to do that. But if you're doing secondary, it's going to go from the chair to the porch, to the cement, from the cement into the garden. So that would be permissible. And even though there are those who are more strict about it, but the general accepted practice is that it is permissible. And that would also apply when the Sukkot had just passed. There are people who have either a tarp covering to their sukkah, that when it rains, then they close it. And then after the rain, they open it up, whether it's the two doors that are on the sukkah or the tarp that you roll back. So again, what happens with the water that does collect on the tarp? Where is that going to go? So if the sukkah is standing on cement, then again, that would be the same story as the chair on the porch. It's going to go from the cement. If it's going to run down to your garden, that's going to be, again, grum, it's going to be secondary. However, if it is going to go directly, as soon as you open it up, it's going to go directly on the grass. That would be like you're taking the chair and putting it right on the grass. That would be an issue. So how do we take care of that? What do we do? So now it matters where your sukkah again is standing. If it's standing on cement, then that would not be an issue according to the ones who are lenient, because it's going to go from the cement into the grass. If it's a place that is well trafficked, people walk there constantly, and so it's not growing anything there, and people are constantly walking there. So even if it's going to be water there, nothing is going to grow because it's a place that people walk. However, what happens if it is grass? And after Sukkot, you do want your backyard to be with grass, whatever is growing there. So what do we do then? Any suggestions? What could we do to make it possible to open the sukkah, to have the sukkah tarp spill the water onto the ground?
Tilt it. Tilt it.
What are we going to do?
Tilt it.
Tilt it. I know that's a yes, but the water is going to go right on the grass, and you're watering your grass. You're promoting growth.
Put it in a bucket.
Well, it would be very difficult to sort of channel the water into a bucket. If you're able to do so, that's fine. But the other suggestion is that you take another tarp and put it on the side of the sukkah. And when the water is going to run down, it's going to run on the tarp or plastic or any other method that it's not going directly onto the grass. It's going to be secondary. The water is going to land on some surface that is not being watered.
So it'll evaporate.
So yes, so whatever happens to it at that point, it's the same as tipping the chair on the porch, where it's going to go onto the cement and then it's going to run up wherever it runs off. The same thing is going to be. Either you put a board there, or you put their plastic or your tarp or anything else that's going to prevent the water from going directly onto the grass. Rather, it's going to be on that surface, and from there it's going to run off. As a secondary thing, I just want to mention is that on Shabbos and Yantif, extending or taking away a roof covering, which we would also call an awning. Can you open or close your awning? Can you roll the tarp back and then roll it out? Is there an issue? What you're doing is now you're making a roof, which is called building, but it is temporary because it's meant to be rolled. So making a temporary roof is permissible if it's an extension. If it's an extension, you're allowed to extend it, but to make it to begin with, that you're not allowed to do. So therefore, if you do have the tarp, so then you would have to have, before Shabbos and Yantif, it would have to be one handbreadth opened. So you cannot put it on to begin with on Shabbos. It's starting to rain. You're going to put it on to begin. That cannot be done because you are making a temporary roof. What you could do is if it's already one handbreadth already extended, so what you're doing is there is already an existing covering, because one tefach, one handbreadth would be considered sufficient. And then what you do is you roll it off. And then when you're closing it, you would not close it completely. You would leave that one handbreadth. So you did not remove the roof and you didn't put on a roof, but you're extending the roof and you're just rolling back where you're not removing the roof. But that's that we'll be speaking about in building tents, covering, making a tent with chairs where the kids could hide under, all these things that we'll have at that melacha that we're speaking about. Okay.
So it's both Shabbos and Yom Tov?
Shabbos and Yom Tov both. So the melacha, what you're permitted to do on Yom Tov would only be that which is specifically connected to foods and carrying, and but however, all other activities that have nothing or have no connection with food, that would be the same as Shabbos. So building on Yom Tov is forbidden. Okay, and this would also. So this also carries us on page 83, where we speak about eating in a garden, not to wash your hands over the grass, watering it. Okay, the flower pots we spoke about last week. Sprinklers, this is on page 84. So now, watering your grass on Shabbos. So that would be a sprinkler. Are you allowed to open the sprinkler on Shabbos? And the answer is no, you're watering the grass. That is the Halacha, that is a Torah prohibition, water the grass. However, what we have now is the automatic sprinklers. It's set on a timer, you set it, you have the different sprinklers that go in the ground, and they set up a whole system and it waters. Can you do that on Shabbos? Timer, okay. So we do use a timer for our electricity. Don't use a timer to cook, that we can't do. What about watering the grass? So at one point, when the timers were something that was new, people assumed when they saw the grass being watered, they assumed that you opened it up on Shabbos. Now this became common knowledge that there is such a thing as an automatic watering system. So as far as people going by and saying that you opened up on Shabbos, no one is going to say that nowadays, because everyone has their schedules. Every other day they're allowed to water it, especially if there are rules when you could, you can't water it. So everyone sets it up in their automatic sprinkler. The question is it the spirit of Shabbos? No. When you go by, you're having your sprinkler on, you're coming back from shul, and you're trying to avoid getting drenched by the sprinkler, or is it in the Shabbos spirit? So even though halachically it would be permissible, but it's not in the Shabbos spirit, one should, when they're setting up the timer, it should not be set for Shabbos. So that is cheapening, called Zilus the Shabbos, cheapening the spirit of Shabbos. So it should be avoided. Here we have that it is permissible. And I think since this is originally written in Eretz Israel, I think when they spoke about the sprinkler system, I think they were speaking about the fields. I don't think they were speaking about what he says over here, that he doesn't bring the other opinion that you're concerned about the Shabbos spirit. I think it was more in the fields. It's out that nobody is there. Question is, could you set your timer that your fields need watering? So go ahead and water your field. If no one is there, no one is observing it, it's not going against the Shabbos spirit because no one is actually dwelling there. No one actually observed it.
When I lived there.
Oh, okay, in Israel.
Yeah, and I actually lived in a place that is well known for developing irrigation systems. So I actually helped move these giant, I guess there were light sprinklers, and I mean, we never touched them over Shabbos, but I'm pretty sure they were working during Shabbos, but no
again,
one saw them.
That's okay. That's so in halacha.
At least,
yes, that's right. It wasn't something that was visible to everyone. That everyone was passing by, was going by this irrigation system. So in halacha, how does Shulchan Aruch describe this situation? Shulchan Aruch says you're allowed to open up your water source on Erev Shabbos on Friday and let the water run all of Shabbos. Which means it was like a hose that had the holes, but it was not a sprinkler. The water was not visible. If anybody walked by, they would not see the water. They would not see the area being watered because it was done discreetly. Because we're speaking about this pipe. So that's what Shulchan Aruch actually speaks about. We're speaking about the 1600s. Shulchan Aruch speaks about a situation where you actually do have the places being watered. You opened it up on Friday, and the water is going, but it's discreet because it's just going along the pipes that are how it's being watered, but not the the sprinkling system where the waters are visibly being seen. So so that's pretty much okay.
Well, I never knew I'd be discussing this years later.
Okay, so your experience adds to our class information. Okay, so now any questions on this malacha? So this malacha was a reya, the malacha was planting or sowing seeds.
Let's say someone has a greenhouse in their backyard.
Has a
A greenhouse in the
Yes.
backyard. So it's a separate location for plants, right? And if they set like a sprinkler, like you might be able to see it from the outside, but not necessarily will it be interfering because it's in a separate location and they don't need.
Right, no, the question is it the spirit of Shabbos or not? Does it spoil the spirit of Shabbos? It makes it look like a weekday for the people who are, who are there. That would be the question. Halachically would be permissible. Should it be done? That would be a question of how it presents itself. Is it something that makes it look like a weekday, or is it the Shabbos spirit? Again, we brought down, when we first started our class, we brought down from Yeshaya, from Isaiah, that which is the psukim are said for the Kiddush of the daytime. So over there it speaks about the Shabbos, doing things in the Shabbos spirit. Even though it would technically not be a malacha, it would not be a prohibited activity, but it's pretty extensive where it speaks about where if you will refrain on Shabbos from walking as you do in the weekdays and doing your activities as you do in the weekdays on my holy day, and you will instead call the Shabbos a day of delight and the holy day of Hashem, you will honor it by not doing your weekday activities, and also in your speech should be a Shabbos-oriented speech. Then Hashem, the Navi tells us, you will have delight in Hashem, He will make you ride on high places, He will give you the inheritance of Jacob, your father. This is what Hashem has said. So here we have the Navi, have Yeshaya, Navi Isaiah telling us that there is also the Shabbos spirit, where even though you may not be in any way doing any prohibitions, but there is also the Shabbos spirit that should be brought into, that should feel that it is Shabbos, and therefore we do have you cover your table with a tablecloth, you have the Shabbos candles, you have dressing up for Shabbos, even though no one is coming to visit you, you're not going anywhere, still you would get dressed up for Shabbos in the honor of Shabbos as it is. So therefore, there are different activities that may technically be permissible, but should not be done because it ruins the Shabbos spirit.
It says here that it's also permitted to turn them off.
Okay, the sprinklers off, not the electricity, but if you want to close the faucet, you are permitted to do so, but what you're doing is you're just refraining from something happening. You're not doing an activity that's going to be something that's happening. So therefore, closing the faucet would be permissible. And however, let's say when it comes to a stove, here there's a separate malacha of extinguishing. So there is making a fire and extinguishing a fire, which are two separate malachas. So even though you're refraining the fire from burning, but that itself is the malacha. Okay, the next malacha is on page 85. That is plowing. So in the order of the Mishnah, the order first comes the sowing, S-O-W, and also the planting, which is also equal, and then comes plowing. So the Talmud asks, why is sowing coming first? Shouldn't the malach of plow come first? And it says it is in a place where the land was very, very hard, and therefore, after you plowed originally, you sowed, you put the seeds in, then you would have to plow it a second time. So that is speaking where that was the usual way how things were done. There was plowing after your sowing. So that's why that comes second. So part of the construction of the tabernacle, part of the construction of the Mishkan is they had plants that were going to be used to dye the curtains. And therefore these plants so all of these activities in the Mishkan was actually done because this was a part of the process of making the dye that's going to be used to color the curtains its source came from plants. So actually, by Matan Torah, by the giving of the Torah, even though they were in the desert, the Sinai desert, everything bloomed and blossomed, and it was a beautiful surroundings. So they were able to plant. And so what is the malacha? The malacha is, we have plowing. Plowing is used to make a groove, make a furrow, and its purpose is to soften the ground, to break up the earth. So when you put the seeds on, the seeds should be able to take root. So digging is also doing that same activity. Plowing with a tool is also used for the same way. So this is the Av Malacha, this is the principal Malacha. We explained that there are 39 principal Malachas, and there are many derivatives that are also Torah prohibitions. We call the main category Av, that's the parent, and we call the derivatives, that's also Torah prohibition. We call that the Tolda, the Tolada, we call that the offspring. Both of them are Torah prohibitions. And then we said there's a third category that is a safeguard not to do something that might lead or look similar to a malacha that the Rabbanan, the Sanhedrin, also made a prohibition. It would be a rabbinic prohibition. So that is what we gave the introduction to our classes. We spent a long time on the background to the different malachas. So now we have activities that are called toldot, which is a Torah prohibition secondary or derivative of the Av Malacha, which is softening the ground for sowing, for planting. And that would not include anything that prepares the ground for planting. And then now page 86, this would include fertilizing, clearing the field of stones and the like, leveling the ground, weeding, watering the ground to soften the earth where you're going to be putting the seeds in a short time later. So all of these are part of this malacha of plowing. Then there are rabbinic safeguards. In this case, if you'll do A, you might come to do B. And that would be when we have sweeping the ground. Sweeping the ground would include leveling, if in case there are any holes, any place that it is not level. When you're going to be planting, going to be sowing, you are going to make sure that the ground is level, so you'll make it easier for you to.
It's a very satisfying thing to do.
To level the ground, and you have a clear area that you're now ready to plant.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah, it's like cleaning a floor, but yes, the technique and the practice, and it's satisfying. Kind of
Okay.
like flying, but
So the Rabbanan were concerned that sweeping the ground, that would also level the ground, also fill in any holes, take away any hills. So now this malacha also would apply to indoors as well. There was a point where most houses did not have the flooring; they had earthen floors, and those who come from certain countries where they still have areas, I don't know if it still is, but when we had students coming from Russia, they still said that they lived in the old city of Samarkand, where they still had earthen floors, and what you would do is you would sweep out the old earth, sprinkle with new layer. So doing that indoors would be building. They're both the same. Doing it outdoors is preparing the ground for planting. Doing it indoors would be a part of building. So they made a restriction that since most homes were not floored, they made a restriction with sweeping. once the majority of the places are floored, so then we're not leveling anything. But we did keep the guidelines. When you are going to sweep on Shabbos, it's going to be with a soft broom, soft bristles. So you are permitted to keep your house tidy, you are permitted to keep your house neat. So therefore, when you are sweeping, let's say there are muktzah items that came from the food that you were eating. Let's say there were the bones that fell to the ground that are not edible for anyone. That would be muktzah, that cannot be handled. However, you do want your clean. So you are permitted to sweep up the floor, and you're allowed to put it into because what's it called? When you shovel the dustpan. So you're allowed to sweep it into the dustpan and then take the dustpan and empty that out into the garbage can. Even though while you're carrying the dustpan, you're also carrying the muktzah items with it, but you don't want the muktzah items, these food items, you don't want them on the floor. And therefore, you are permitted to remove them because this is something that bothers you. So you're allowed to remove them and put them into the garbage. So as a result, we do have that you are permitted to sweep your floor, but with a soft bristled broom.
Isn't it supposed to be like a small area though? You're not supposed to like start sweeping your entire house.
So that if it was swept before Shabbos, and now something happened that you do feel that you have to see you're allowed to do that as
Right,
well.
but you can't start like cleaning your entire house.
No, that's not again. It's not the Shabbos spirit.
Right.
And in Shulchan Aruch, it speaks about making your bed. So if you're making the bed because you want it to be neat for Shabbos, you go into the room, you like it to be the bed spread out, it's nice. So then you're allowed to do it because you're doing it for Shabbos. But then there are those who sort of the bedroom was sort of, you close the door, you didn't go in there all Shabbos, and whatever was there was nothing that bothered you for Shabbos. So then it says if you're just making the bed in order to be easier, that when you're going to go to sleep at night after Shabbos, then it's going to be all set up already, and you're setting it up for after Shabbos. That cannot be done. But if you're doing it for Shabbos, that could be done. The same thing is also with our sweeping. If you're doing it because of Shabbos, it was neat before Shabbos, it's nice, and now it's something happened that you need to sweep, then you do that. We're going to come to another issue. I just want to mention it here, is we're all speaking about a floor that does not have any material covering over it. So we're not speaking about a carpet, not speaking about a rug. We're speaking about a floor that's tiled, wood, the marble, whatever that may be. However, when it comes to a carpet and a rug, then there are guidelines of what you could and can't do, and you cannot use the brush that have the carpet sweeper that has brushes in it. And you still use that? Okay. The carpet sweeper that you go back and forth with the brushes that brush it up. So using a brush on material is an issue on Shabbos. So therefore, when we'll come to how to deal with material, which should also go into like your jacket or whatever it is, using a brush for that. We'll go into that when we come to that category. But I do want to, I just want to mention that a carpet sweeper cannot be done on Shabbos. You could take off lightly whatever is on the surface, but not to undust your carpet.
Undust.
Well, we call it dusting.
That's a great word. I've never heard that word.
Because you say dusting means putting in dust. But that's not what it means when we say it. Okay, so I say
There's a
undust.
product actually called Indust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now, so we see that even though originally it was a prohibition of sweeping because of an earthen area, because you have these tough bristles, you're going to be moving the earth. So we did have the Rabbanan took away that stringency when it came to floored to the places that do have covering to them. Now we do have. What about? We had playing with nuts or marbles or similar objects on the ground. So how do these games go? Generally, okay. So you have a target, and then if it's outdoors, you're going to be shooting the marbles or the nuts to hit the target. And if there's any hole, or if it's not clear, then you're going to clear that, and straighten it out, because you want the target to be directly from where you are shooting.
On the staircase.
Okay, so but now, originally, all of this was done outdoors, or if it was done in the house, it was an earthen floor. So they made a prohibition of playing these games that are directly on the floor, that need a smooth surface, a clear surface, a level surface. So this was a prohibition. Now, let me finish this. So these games should not be played outdoors on Shabbos, even if it is already paved, because since originally they made this restriction, they did not feel that in order to play these games, you have to take away this restriction. They did do so when it came to keeping your house tidy, but since these games could be played otherwise, so therefore they made these restrictions. And what could be done is it could be played on carpet or rug or a table or anything that's not actually the ground, that you could play these games. So if you want to play it on the table, it could be played on the table. You want to play it on the rug, you want to play it on the carpet, that could be done.
When I was little in Israel, we used to play that on an outdoor staircase, where it was like those like tiles. So it was this tile staircase outdoors, and it was like this much off of like the sidewalk, but it was on the ground.
It matters what age. Matters what age they stop children from playing. It matters what age they are. If they're at a very young age, you let them play. You're not obligated to stop them from playing. You encourage them, so they should not be encouraged to play the games that have the floors. If you do have the a game that was called Kuglach or Jacks, so that does not go into this category, because you don't need a level floor to play this game. So the Kuglach and Jacks could be played on the surface. It doesn't go into this category. Washing the floor. So a rubber broom does not apply which does not absorb water. It's called what's it called? A sponger. Squeegee.
Yeah.
Squeegees. So you have so it says in a place that you do need proper situation, page 88. It gives us an example as in a hospital where it has to be kept sanitary, a home when the floor is very filthy, then if it's made of stone, wood, tiles, linoleum, not earthen, so the rubber broom, squeegee, or on a broomstick does not absorb water, not with a rag, and you push the water into a drain on the floor, and that would be the
It's okay to do that?
only in special situations. It's not the normal, of Shabbos, we do not wash our floors. That's the general rule, we do not wash our floors. We're speaking about special situations that came up, a
Like,
child.
let's say a jug of water fell.
Oh, so then you try to have the water absorbed. So here we have on page
You can't
88.
squeegee it into the drain?
Generally, such a situation, I guess it could be done. It could be done. If it's a small quantity of water, you could put a rag that's made for cleaning, not to squeeze it. If a large quantity of water is spilled, you could put a rag in it and leave it in its place, or you push it down with the squeegee. So that could be done. But what we are concerned about is that you might wring the cloth, and that itself is malacha. So the squeegee is that's what I'm saying. So to do that to begin with, to go wash your floors on Shabbos, that is not the Shabbos spirit, even though technically you're not doing any malacha. But again, unless the situation is such that that's something that the floors were cleaned before Shabbos, something came up, it got soiled, the cholent fell on it, Uh-oh. Okay, so that would be it. So, okay, so what I want you to do is to go ahead and read the next chapter, which is reaping. After it grew, then we're going to now remove whatever is growth from its place of growth. That's on page 91 through 98. This is our for next week in Hashem. Now, in the beginning of the term, we had gone through what is the Torah order of how things were, how did the Rabbanan make their different restrictions. So what gives the Sanhedrin the authority, what gives the Rabbanan the authorities, who are the rabbis. So this book, I recommend this book, which is the Handbook on Jewish Thought. You have this also in the introduction to Maimonides on the Mishnah Torah. It gives a big introduction of how we got the Halacha, starts it from Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai, and goes all the way until contemporary time and his time. But then this also traces it more in detail. So I recommend this book. This is by Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, Handbook on Jewish Thought, Volume 1. It comes in 2 volumes. Volume 1 is the one that deals with it. So he deals with the Sanhedrin. He deals with goes through with the authority and what is halacha in contemporary times, what is customs, what is rules. So this, I recommend this book. Now, for those who came in later, I did give out the introduction, so I do have some copies that those who would like to have some copies of this. I gave out 3, I think there are 3 handouts.
Today?
No, I gave this out in the beginning of the year. So those